Hello there, my name is Lamin Jai, and this is News Review. Coming up for you on the show today, UDP leader Dabo greets Christians on the occasion of this year's Christmas. We have Dabo's Christmas message to the Christian community, and we will bring it to you. Manswankas meet to discuss ways of saving their culture and language from complete extinction. Also, businessman Abubakari Jawara gives $100,000 to the women of Sanyang. There, the nation's civil society organizations also held a press conference on the draft constitution and the new efforts that are underway to reviving it. These and more. I will also be joined by Mari Jobate later and journalist Mustafa K. Dabo. For all of this, we'll quickly see what the papers are reporting on today. Today we don't have the Standard, rather we have Foraya and the Point newspapers. Foraya is reporting today that Nyangui case referred to Special Criminal Court. GRA host maiden pre-retirement sensitization forum for staff. Gambia launches first national migration policy. OSCPS concluded its council meeting. So let's see what the stories are saying in detail. So according to the Foraya newspaper, Basse Magistrates Court on 23rd December 2020 transferred the rape case of a man from Samdu Nyakwai or Nyankui to the Special Criminal Court. Magistrate Omar Jabang transferred the matter and remanded the accused pending his appearance before the Special Criminal Court upon hearing the testimony of the alleged victim in chambers. When the case was called before Magistrate Jabang at Basse Magistrates Court, the police prosecutor Sub-Inspector ECC quickly applied to the court for the witness, that is the victim, to testify in chambers. GRA host maiden pre-retirement sensitization forum for staff. The Gambia Revenue Authority has recently hosted its maiden pre-retirement sensitization forum for its staff retirees of the year 2021 and 2022. Gambia launches first national migration policy. The Gambia has on Wednesday, 23rd December 2020, launched the first national migration policy 2020-2030, which the government is committing itself to implement to maximize the development potential of migration and ensure full respect of all migrants. Let's see what the Point is reporting on there. Then Soma Darussalam hit by water shortage. Info Minister, that's the Information Minister, they are dismayed at APRC leaders' comments. Rising fish price causes high demand in chicken. Tranquil land scuffles. State urged to intervene. GRA holds maiden pre-retirement. And I think the Foraya newspaper reported on that too. So on the Point, Soma Darussalam, an area of Jara Soma, the provincial capital of the Roa River region, is currently facing acute water shortage. The Minister of Information and Communication Infrastructure, Ibrahim Wasilla, has expressed his utter dismay over the comments made by interim leader of Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction, that's APRC there, of course, Fabakary Tombong Jatta, that at some point Gambians may resort to using guerrilla warfare to regain sovereignty from Senegal. In an exclusive interview with West Coast Radio, the APRC interim leader said the Gambia-Senegal relationship is benefiting only President Barrow, a comment that also surprised the Information Minister. To say that our relationship with Senegal was based on the benefits of only President Barrow, that we have lost our sovereignty, and that at some point, if this government is not careful, people may resort to using guerrilla warfare to regain our sovereignty back, I think that is quite unfortunate of a political leader in this country. Those are the comments there by Minister of Information Ibrahim Wasilla. A rising fish shortage or price causes high demand in chicken. A good number of households in the Gambia have now resorted to the consumption of imported chicken thighs from the European countries following increase in the price of pelagic fishes due to fish shortage at the local markets. Yes, I think that is all for the newspapers. We will take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Thank you and welcome back. So UDP leader Ousainou Darboe today took to Facebook to send messages of love and best wishes to the Christian community as they prepare to mark this year's Christmas. He is the first political leader to do so. More in this.
Good afternoon to all my Christian brothers and sisters. As we commemorate the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ tomorrow, 25th December 2020, I must take this opportunity to wish you all a Merry Christmas and best wishes for the festive season. Christmas is about time. It's about spending time with family, friends and loved ones, and it's about creating happy memories that will last a lifetime. This Christmas, I pray that we all take and celebrate our religious diversity. Let us all, as citizens of the country, we with pride, called the Gambia, exercise religious tolerance, embrace each other as one family, and take the opportunity during this festive season to show love and kindness to those who need it most. Above all, let us be grateful to God the Almighty for being alive and in good health. This year has been a tough one, and many have lost loved ones as a result of COVID-19. As we continue to pray for those who have departed and those who are sick and in bed, we must continue to stay safe and remember that this virus knows no boundary. May the special occasion of Christmas bring peace, joy, and goodwill to you, your families, and your loved ones. May the Christmas end the present year on a cheerful and joyous note, and make way for a fresh and bright new year in anticipation that the next Christmas will be brighter, better, and more joyous for many. Wishing you and your families peace, good health.
Do you want to win millions of dollars this December? All you have to do is dial *777# for free or call or SMS 1010 at $3 is only to participate in the new AfriHali show and be part of the 7 daily winners.
Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays live on GRTS, Afri Radio, and social media platforms. Be part of our lucky winners.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Thank you. So the nation's civil society organizations and trade unions today pulled together and held a press conference over ongoing efforts there to relaunch the draft constitution. Clearly, it's in distrust. It has been voted down by MPs, and there are fresh efforts, really, to bring it back. Jaka Sisa Jete was at the press conference there held by the civil society, and see now reports.
The shooting down of the draft constitution by the country's lawmakers back in September continues to attract repulsion. Today, the Gambia civil society organizations and trade unions banded to yet again register their disappointment in the rejection of the draft by MPs.
Civil society organizations, like many Gambians, were disappointed not only by the failure of the National Assembly to pass the final draft constitution to its third reading, but also by the lack of a passionate drive by the executive to defend the bill it had sponsored. The draft bill was rejected without a substantive debate on the substantive provisions. The rejection of the draft by a sizable number of National Assembly members in only its very first reading is an indication of the absence of a political consensus amongst members of the Assembly. This, despite the fact that the draft constitution presented to the National Assembly was a culmination of a wider stakeholder consultation of Gambians at home and in the diaspora. As civil society, it is rather unfortunate that no meaningful concerted efforts were made by the stakeholders to chart a way forward in the aftermath of the draft's rejection.
The Gambia government, following huge criticism and pressure, has been engaged in fresh efforts to relaunch the draft constitution. Former Nigeria President Goodluck Jonathan was in the country over the weekend to talk to all stakeholders towards a deal. The country's civil society were engaged.
We welcome and support the new efforts by the government to revive the final draft constitution through support of the international idea and former President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria as facilitators and mediators. We are hopeful that this would unlock the key sticking points on the top of the contentious issues, thus brokering a common, non-partisan ground in the national interest. However, we remain concerned about the process and its outcome. Our concern was born out of the engagements we had with International IDEA on Monday, December 14th, and with His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan on Friday, December 18th. On both occasions, we expressed our apprehensions, concerns, and position on the process and outcome of the consensus building effort. We hold that the government, International IDEA, and mediator Goodluck Jonathan cannot tag civil society as stakeholders and yet fail to avail it with issues and options document, which was purposely prepared to guide the dialogue. As critical stakeholders in the process, we are yet to be availed the opportunity to meaningfully partake in the political dialogue initiated by the government of the Gambia. The inclusion and participation of civil society as a non-partisan entity is urgent, legitimate, and critical to the building of meaningful political consensus. It protects the legitimacy and integrity of the process and upholds the best interests of the citizenry.
At Thursday's news conference, civil society leaders called for honesty in the negotiations for a deal.
The Gambia civil society strongly urges President Adama Barrow, International IDEA, and the Chief Mediator Goodluck Jonathan to ensure transparency, participation, inclusion, and national consensus. For that matter, we hereby wish to state our position on the process and outcome for a new constitution. The current process should be guided by the highest ideals of sincerity, honesty, transparency, and commitment to the national interest by all stakeholders. Any new draft constitution must A, uphold and guarantee the fundamental rights and freedoms of all Gambians, including justiciable socio-economic rights. B, uphold the Gambia as a sovereign republic based on modern democratic values and the rule of law, in which all citizens are equal in rights and dignity. Guarantee a state with clear separation of powers between the three different organs of state, with a clear delineation of their respective powers and authority. D, unequivocally set presidential term limits to ensure no president serves beyond the two-term mandate to prevent self-perpetuating rule. E, create adequate checks and balances to restrain power, ensure transparency and accountability, and efficiency of public institutions, and prevent abuse of office. F, empower the National Assembly as the people's representation F, empower the National Assembly as the people's representation, has all the necessary oversight powers to check the executive and all structures of state to ensure that they adhere to the rule of law, perform their functions efficiently and effectively, and prevent corruption. G, to create and guarantee the secularity of the state, in which the state will have the due obligation to protect the rights of all citizens to freedom of belief and worship. And H, to ensure a credible electoral process, pluralism, political participation that allow the people to fully exercise their franchise on constitutional and electoral decisions.
The Gambia continues to stand at a crossroad over a new constitution. It was a key campaign promise of President Adama Barrow, but the voting down of a draft that sought to achieve that by MPs loyal to the Gambian leader has thrown the sincerity of the Barrow administration towards this promise into serious doubt. Reporting for the Fatu Network News Review, Jaka CCJT. The shooting down.
Welcome back. Now I'm joined by my two very important guests. Today we will talk about almost everything. I have Madi Jobate. I also have journalist Mustafa Dabo. We'll talk about the draft constitution there and the new efforts around it. That will be one of the topics, but another topical issue would have to be the president's tour. UDP went to a congress. These are some of the things really that we will discuss. But first, I will allow my guests to welcome them. Madi, thank you for coming.
Good Mustafa, to be here.
Thank you for coming. Let me start with Madi. Just a few days ago, you called on the IGP to arrest Hamad Bah, tourism minister. Why do you say this?
Well, that post was one of sarcasm, but also one of accountability. Because I had stated some time ago the failure of the government to bring justice and accountability for the murder of Haruna Jatta, Keba Seka, and Usman Dabo in different occasions, one in Kanilai, one in Serekunda Market, and one around Senegambia, in which state agents were involved. And just for saying that, in fact, at an event that was to mark Black Lives Matter, which is also against police brutality, only to be subjected to what I consider to be kidnapping by the IGP, and then charged for false publication broadcasting. So fast forward to the moment that Hamad Bah made that remark, distorting the comments of Honorable Omar Sise on the floor of the National Assembly about the Supplementary Appropriation Bill at a public event, part of the constitutionally mandated country tour by the president. And so I felt, as a appointed public official, as a minister in the cabinet, to have the audacity to stand in front of the public and distort the proceedings of the National Assembly, to malign, to ridicule a certain National Assembly member, and distort his remarks, for me should be one that should be condemned, because what Hamad said was a lie, was not true, was fake, and so if there's any falsity, that is it. And if the IG is to do his job professionally, it was not to come after me, but to go after somebody like Hamad Bah, who should also be held accountable for blatantly lying in front of Gambians, particularly seeking to distort what had happened in the National Assembly, which is the legislative arm of the state, and Hamad being part of the executive. they can disagree, have differences between the legislature and the executive, but they should be sincere and honest to one another, so that in terms of the relationship that the executive and the legislature share in the governance and development of our country, I find it utterly worrying that a member of the executive could go to the citizens to misinterpret, to distort the account of a member of the legislature speaking in the legislature. For me, that is really outrageous, for which I think while I welcome what Honorable Omar Sise did to do a press conference and bring all the necessary information to show that Hamad was lying, I believe this is a matter that the National Assembly as a whole also needs to take up with the executive, that between these two institutions there should be decorum, there should be trust, and there should be sincerity, that one should not seek to undermine the dignity and the integrity of the order or their members. Because when that happens, as the two foremost institutions that are in charge of the governance and development of the Gambia, for me, I find that to be a huge dent on the good governance of the Gambia. So for that matter, I felt I need to bring back this issue. You know, of course, the law on, this provision in the criminal code on false publication and broadcasting is a bad law. It shouldn't exist. So I wouldn't support anyone to be arrested on the basis of that law. But the fact that it had happened, like with me and many others even before me, and now to see a minister doing so, then if it is good for the goose, it must be good for the gander. So what is the IG waiting for?
So he should go after Hamad.
So we should have seen the IG.
We've seen a lot of people even find it really hilarious.
Yeah, it's
making
hilarious.
that call. They simply think that's impossible. But in your opinion, quickly, do you think it was deliberate on the part of Hamad to say what he said, or it was simply out of his ignorance of the the facts?
No, there was no iota of ignorance. It was completely well calculated, deliberate, conscious effort to misinform, to mislead, to distort for the purposes of political gain. Because I think Hamad's objective really is that by the next legislative election, they would want to see that seat taken away from GDC and Honorable Omar Sise and taken to NPP or NRP or, And so this was an attempt to do that. It was an attempt to undermine Honorable Omar Sise, who is one of our, most formidable MPs, and particularly a very young person for that matter, who is severely holding the government to account as his duty as a member of the National Assembly. So it was purposely intended to undermine, weaken Honorable Omar Sise, for political purposes, as I said, but in a very insidious, in a very dishonest, vicious way, because which honorable human being would do that? That you would go to the people, his own people, in his own constituency, and distort the man's comments, statements, when he is sitting there, and therefore trying to tell the people of Nyamena East that Omar Sise is a liar, is a fake, can't be trusted, is your enemy. So I think what Hamad did is unprecedented, in political games, and for me, I think not just Omar Sise and the National Assembly, but every citizen must take a stand to severely hold Hamad to account. And for me, if Barrow is really committed to the good governance of this country, to honesty in governance, Hamad should have been sat there. And to say this, I just got to learn that actually when Barrow came to speak in that same event, where Omar really did respond very well, made a very good speech, he did sort of spoke well of Omar. And the fact that, an opposition could be asked to speak at an event in which, he's an opposition and the president is there. And so I haven't heard the president speak, But somebody told me that's the line that the president spoke in a way to dispel or to, disregard what Hamad said, which for me, if he spoke that way, that is very good. And so I would say the president did well there, but he needs to go further, really, to dismiss Hamad Ba from his cabinet. If not, I think the National Assembly, I would want to see a motion of censure passed for the dismissal of Hamad Ba, because he has gone below the values, the standards of honest governance, sincerity, values that should underpin the decisions, the actions of public officials, anywhere in the world.
Thank you. I think we will stick to that. Will take us through the president's tour itself. I mean, for the past 2 weeks or so, what we have seen is that the president has been, crisscrossing the country, meeting with the people. But a lot of people say it is some political tour, not necessarily a tour of meeting the people and talking to them about what really benefit them. But instead, the president is just out to grow his political, interest. Mustafa, as a journalist, what have you been seeing in terms of the president and his tour this time around?
Well, I think generally it's with regards to the format of the tour. Usually that's how tours, presidential tours happen in this country. So president goes out, meet the people, and usual politics, like tell them what projects he has done, what he is coming to do. Sometimes those projects don't even directly affect those people. So probably if there is a need for them to review the format of the tour. The tour, it's a farmer's tour originally, and what it's supposed to do is to give the president an opportunity to understand, to see the government projects that are implemented in the regions and firsthand their impact, or go over, look at the progress of projects that are ongoing, or to sit down and listen to the complaints of the people and then find ways to address them. These are some of the main issues why the president goes on tour. But usually, as we've seen, that's not been the case on the Jammeh as it is on the Barrow. So president goes there and tell even people in CRR what he's doing in Banjul, what he's doing in Congo, and how everybody should vote for him in the coming election, or mock his opponents, or sometimes bad jokes, things like that. I mean, it's the way our politics is. But that's how it is. It's just being about politics, and yeah.
Mahdi, what we have also seen is that there's been a lot of malarkey coming out of these political meetings that the president, you will see a lot of unimportant talks, really. You see even the president himself criticizing. All he does, spends the entire speech attacking his critics. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, because you've politicized it, made it a partisan political rally, which means you've taken the purpose of the talk completely from what the Constitution has said, why and how this tour should be conducted. And I wish, the National Assembly would, somebody would put a motion forward for a public inquiry on this tour, because I think people should be held accountable for making this tour a partisan affair and therefore wasting public funds, public resources, which should not be wasted for free. So this tour for me is like what one would call a trek or field visit that any public office would do. So it is not fanfare. There's no point to carry all government officials along, or particularly party members along, or anybody. For me, it is a matter for the president to go. It's a technical affair to go meet the technicians in the regions, meet communities in the regions, and that doesn't require a rally till midnight. It is, go 8 to 4 to a community, have a conversation, get your technicians, take note of things, share information with them, update them what is happening, why, and hear about real issues and nothing partisan, you know, and you come back. And for that, you don't need a whole convoy of tens of vehicles. And Gambia being such a small country, 400 kilometers to the farthest point. So you can even go to Basse and come back. But even if you are going to stay in Basse, I mean, already you have government ministries, agencies inside Basse, whether it's education or health or agriculture and so on. So those folks in the ministry, in those sectors, for example, the Minister of Agriculture don't necessarily have to go. The permanent secretary could go. Some other few technicians from agriculture can go, because there are agriculture, there's a regional agriculture office inside there, education, healthcare, and so on. And those people are there to implement government programs at the regional level. So it is to meet those people, I mean, as the technicians on the ground, with the communities to see what are the issues in terms of agriculture, in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of roads, and so on and so forth. So you really don't need to carry so many people, you know, and you know, so it's just a field visit at the presidential level, you know, but to transform it into a party affair and to hear the kind of comments that have been made there, for me, deserves warrants that there is an inquiry on this tour, because it's a complete waste of public resources, and anybody who plunders public resources should be held accountable.
But so, when you talk about an inquiry, you are talking about something that is, to a large extent, it is the president that is empowered to sanction an inquiry. So when what if you have the president who is at the
National Assembly? The National Assembly
yes,
has the power to open an inquiry, to inquire into how what the Constitution says about this tour and how this tour has been conducted. Has it been conducted along the line of the Constitution? In the conduct of this tour, has public money or public resources been utilized in ways that is a waste and illegal? All right? Because if you put somebody who is not a public official, is not a member of that community, it's just that because he's a member of a political party or just a supporter of the president, he has no legal constitutional reason to be in this tour. Yet you paid for this man's transportation, for his accommodation, for his feeding, for his welfare upkeep all the way through. So that means that is an illegal use of public resources, and that has to be accounted for. So for me, there should be a National Assembly inquiry into this tour, because we cannot continue to perpetuate abuse of office. Because when we say abuse of office, this is a classic example of abuse of office, and for long this has been the case. You know, to use this initially called farmer store, meet the farmer store, Jammeh calls it meet the people's store, and it still continues. It has to stop. So for me, there needs to be an inquiry, you know, and otherwise, I mean, I wish I had the resources or some other people to take the matter to court. That, you know, this kind of tour should not be held again, all right? And that, you know, what has happened, to investigate to see wherever there is excess abuse, that those responsible, pay for that abuse.
Mustafa, what do you have to say about the issue of these tours, to a large extent, turning into a tour of people defecting, transfer of people from GDC? All the time you hear them, hundreds are transferring from GDC to NPP. What does that have to do with a tour that is purely to meet with the people? How do you reconcile that?
That's why I said the entire tour, the format of the tour, it's designed in such a way that it does not even resolve to the intended purpose. Because the purpose is to go and listen and know the people's problem. That's why it was initially the farmer's tour. You meet the farmers, know what their problems are, check the government, our ongoing projects in the region, see what is wrong, what is right, what needs to be done, and things like that. That's initially the intent of the tour. But even the setup of the meeting, where they decide even before they leave who are going to talk, they know these people already, all these people have somehow some form of responsibility they don't want to miss, so they wouldn't look at the president in the eye and speak. The tour should
And
be
speak truth to him, yes.
The tour should be a discussion between the president and the common person, not a tour where the minister goes to talk and tell the people what they should be listening to. No, the tour is for the public servant to go sit before the person he is serving, to tell him what his problems are, what needs to be done to fix those problems. Or even if the people don't have the solution, then the civil servant to know what the problems of the people are, then find solutions to those problems. That's the intent of the tour. But what you see is a completely different political setup, which is a meeting, it's a monologue. It's government itself talking to itself, because it's the governors that speak. And even how the discussion ends, you know who is important. It's the president who ends up speaking.
Who speaks last.
Finalizing everything, yes. The governors will speak. I mean, and who talks down the governor? Like in the region, like if the governor speaks, you don't come back to say, no, the governor is lying. No one does that.
No one.
So probably they would need to review the format of the, maybe they can continue to do it, but review the format of the meeting such that the essence is not lost.
And one thing that the president has proven to be the lord, if you like, of roads. Wherever the president goes to, he will tell you, I'll build your road. I'll build your road. The president is particularly keen when it comes to roads.
Which speaks to our understanding of development, because the president knows that in the Gambia, the majority of people think that you need to build a road. And if you build a road, you build a school, you build some magnificent building, very nice building, you're the best. That's the Gambian thinking. Now, but the difficult things he knows, have you ever heard him talk about some very good plan of how he is going to stop rice importation in this country? We consume about 200,000 tons, and we currently produce about 46,000 tons. You look at the production capacity, the production consumption gap, it's around 154,000 tons. That's the gap. That means we import 154,000 tons plus of rice in this country every year. I think it should be close to 200 million dollars or something, or $50 million plus. Think about it. That's a huge amount of money. That's that's close to $3 billion, if I am right. Now, but the president has no plan how to stop this. But the easiest thing is to go to the bank, whichever bank, and tell them, give me money. Banks know government will pay. So you can build any road in this country. It's actually not, a primary school student can do it. It's not magic. You can build any road.
It's not complicated.
No, it's nothing. You just go to the bank, you present them to them a payment plan. They always know the most loyal institution to pay back loan is government. That is why development economists will tell you, when government borrows more, the private sector suffers. Why? Because the private sector, if you go to the government, for example, if domestic borrowing is increased, if you go to the government, they look at your security. For example, you're going to invest it in some business. They know the chances of you failing is there. It could be huge, it could be medium, it could be high, but it's there. But the government, the chances of them paying back, it's huge. There will always be tax money. They can always rob Peter to pay John. They can go and borrow some other people and pay you. Yeah. Government will always pay. But this is the situation.
This is the
Unless
situation.
we understand and we know where we want to go, and we hold our leaders to account with regards to that.
And quickly, Mustafa, one thing that has to do with the journalists, quickly, before we move on to another subject, that has to do with the issue of journalists, being given $5,000. That issue came out, and there was these reports that some journalists were complaining about logistics. Mm-hmm. Did you hear that?
Well, I have heard about it, and but it's not corroborated. As far as I know, I heard it was the government spokesperson, Ibrahim Sankare, who said it on West Coast. That's the information I've got. I don't know whether it's true that they've given goat over 5,000, I think, to some journalist. And this has been going on in the media. I've seen Uncle Demba Jao wrote about it. Mm-hmm. I've never confirmed it to be true or otherwise. And I know that it's an uncompromising ethical principle in journalism that we don't take favors from people we report on. So I do not know how that happened. But if that happened, that is reprehensible. Yeah. And I think that media houses should also make sure that they take care of their people they send on tour, because it's not easy to go around the country. I've been with the president.
Of course, tours can be
tour, and it's not easy.
Tours can be grueling.
Taking care of yourself in that place all over. It's
exactly. And Mahdi, quickly now, let's talk about the draft constitution. What we have seen clearly, I mean, still there is a lot of repulsion around the fact that the MPs should shut it down, and now you have the government. Clearly, there's been a huge amount of criticism, but not just that, pressure for this government to deliver on this issue. Now, this new initiative of inviting former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, to come in and find a way of striking a consensus among all these parties, the stakeholders. What do you have to say about this approach?
Well, I am certainly not okay of this approach, and it pains me simply because for me, I see it as an act of insincerity, perpetuated by the president himself, that he deliberately failed to support the creation of a new constitution, which is very necessary given our transitional process and in the building of that new Gambia we all wanted. So to deliberately refuse to support that, to in fact generate its failure based on only selfish interests, and then seek to use another door to make us believe that you are committed, interested in this, and then seek to bring also stakeholders into that. For me, I find it as self-serving, very insincere, and very unbecoming of anyone who is a leader of any people. That you fail to stand for the people, the best interest of your people at the right time, just because you feel your interest wasn't served. So to bring Jonathan or anyone else, fine. But I just wish all the stakeholders, particularly civil society, but the political parties, regardless, would make sure, in any case, certain values and standards are non-negotiable. We are a democratic republic, and at the core of that, we need term limits. No Gambian, in my view, should serve for more than 10 years, as president. And for me, that should start from 2017 going forward. No Gambian should serve, either consecutively or not for more than 10 years. That Gambia is a secular republic in which all, citizens have a right to worship, to believe, and the state should protect that right. That we have to have all the necessary checks and balances as necessary in a democratic republic, and that fundamental rights should be guaranteed. And these rights are not just civil rights and political rights, but also social rights, economic rights, and cultural rights. So I wish all the stakeholders would stand by that. But even before we get there, it is to say, for me, as a citizen, I would want to see someone pay the price. You see, Lamin, ultimately, our governance and development, our peace and security, the enjoyment of our rights, or the lack of them, rests on accountability. We cannot have a government which has talked of a transitional justice program, the base of which is a new constitution, to build all these frameworks, to create a CRC, invest so many millions of dollars into that process in order to usher in a new Gambia, to now come to abandon that and undermine that process, that outcome, and then to have to take us through to a whole new process, which is also going to be, cost us so much. For me, we need to hold whoever is responsible to account. Why did we fail? in the first instance? We need to ask that question. Why did the final draft constitution fail September 22nd? Who was responsible? You know, and that question has to be asked so that those responsible, you know, are held accountable, you know, for that gross, you know, disregard of the national interest.
And also what we have seen is that Jonathan has left the country without a deal. Certainly still there are gray areas. There has not been a deal, an agreement around it. And all of a sudden we saw the dismissal, if you like, of, I know government is calling it, he is deployed, Solicitor General. Do you think these two things can be related?
Well, there could be. I wouldn't get into any speculation. I'll just express concern and surprise why the Solicitor General or the former Marena Cherno would be removed. Good governance leadership would require that the President or the Attorney General would come to say, why do you think the services of Cherno Marena is unnecessary? You know, I mean, I would have done that, really, because what value is Cherno going to put into the foreign service, you know, more than what he could put in the Ministry of Justice, which I understand is the only ministry he's been at since, I guess, his employment, first time he started employment. So I wouldn't say why, I mean, or link it to this, but just to also say, I do not expect that they would expect Jonathan would come first round and then there is a deal. I think negotiations, as they call it, a dialogue, I mean, consensus building, does not take place in one event. So, so I would expect that Jonathan would come. But, you know, to show you the lack of sincerity and seriousness of the government, one would have expected that before Jonathan comes, before you initiate this whole process, or as you do, the president would come to talk to the nation that because the constitution failed to pass in September and all of the rest, we have decided, or I have decided as head of state, to take another process to deal with this. So you tell citizens, why is Jonathan coming? You know, that's your responsibility, that's your duty, and that's an obligation.
And Jonathan clearly indicated that it was the president who invited
right,
him.
yes, and that is a right of citizens to know, because this is a major undertaking to bring a former head of state from another country to come to your country to engage your government and other stakeholders, I mean, to sort of dialogue. So what is the disagreement about? So one would have expected that this president would be so responsible, I mean, you know, to show leadership, to come to Gambians first and foremost. Jonathan is coming. Even before Jonathan comes, that Jonathan is coming, these are the issues. This is my objective, and, you know, call on the stakeholders, cooperate. All right? That didn't happen. Jonathan has left. And it is now, I don't know, more than 72 hours, this president has not come to Gambians again to say, we have brought Jonathan down here, and this is what happened, you know, this is what we achieved or did not achieve, and these are the next steps, and so on. That did not happen. So it tells you, for me, it tells me that our president is not serious about this. That this government is not serious about this. Neither the president nor the Attorney General, you know, found it necessary to come and approach Gambians. In a normal country, in fact, this would require a national address at the National Assembly. You bring the full house of the National Assembly to report to them what is happening. This is what serious leaders do. But people come in and out, I mean, you know, of something that is about the destiny of the country. This is not about some project over there, some program or some policy paper here. This is about the constitution of the country. That is the foundation of the country. We are building the foundation of the country. The destiny, the future of the country. That is not an easy matter, you know. But we are here. Citizens read on Fatu Network, Jonathan is coming to Gambia. They read Jonathan met and blah, blah, blah. Now they watch again Fatu Network talking about Jonathan has left. I mean, imagine you are sitting down in Boraba, you sit there, you will be like, okay, what happened? Why is the responsible people to come and talk to us in a responsible way? And who is more responsible than the President of the Republic or the Attorney General? or both of them sit together and address, or so that that person sitting in Boraba would get to know, okay, this is the official version of what had happened. But we sit here in this country, nothing. But look at this president. Recall, since CRC was formed, he never addressed this country to tell Gambians, look, we have now formed the CRC. We are back in 2018, all right, to do this purpose.
Yes.
And I call on all of you as citizens to participate in this process of building a new constitution. CRC did this work. They submitted their first draft sometime in November 2019 and submitted to him. The president never did a public address to tell Gambians, here, Gambians, I have now received this draft constitution. And these are my views about it, or anything like that. Look at it again and make your comments, because I'll be a second draft. That second draft came, final draft, they gave it to him in March 2020. The president never came to Gambians to say, today I have received the final draft of this constitution. This is a major milestone for the country. This is the next step. This is what I'm going to do. Then we sat there until May. He gazetted it and never came to the Gambians. But today I have gazetted the final draft constitution. 3 months down the line, in September, you put it before the National Assembly.
But sorry to cut you there, but did you realize that the president has made it clear time and again that he's not one who will engage in much talking? Did you,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, but
you're saying
that
all of
is a
these things, but
meaningless-
that is what the president
Yeah,
said.
no.
He said that he's not going to do that. The issue of him going everywhere, all every now and then talking, he said he's not.
Yeah, but that's the height.
out for that.
That's the height of irresponsibility. My brother, you are the leader of the country. Major issues are happening, things bordering on the life of the country. You are talking about, I'm not going anywhere to talk. I mean, what are you talking about? You're the president. As I was saying, look at, these are all milestones I'm pointing out to you, where we needed to get the leader of the country to talk to citizens, so citizens know what is happening. But that never happened. The constitution failed on the floor of the National Assembly. The president never talked about it, as if nothing has happened in this country. When you had spent millions of dollars on that process over 1 year or so, I mean, you say you are not going to talk about it because you don't want to be everywhere. What is that? Now that has failed. You went and bring a foreign head of state to come here. You still feel you don't have to tell Gambians anything? I mean, as a citizen, I'm seriously disturbed by that. I don't trust that leadership anymore, because I'm on my own. Yes, because I don't want to hear what Jonathan tells me about what happened. I don't want to hear what International Idea is going to say what happened about it. No, I want to hear from my president why this is happening, what happened, what was achieved or not achieved, what are the next steps. Yeah, so I know, okay, I have a responsible leader now. But, I think it's shameful.
Mustafa, the one stakeholder that has also been engaged once this process started has been the media. They are saying, the government are saying that the media is a key partner, key stakeholder in the entire process. As a journalist,
In the process of
making
the new constitution.
not just that, but the dialogue that they have initiated to ensure that all the recent dialogue, even at the meeting with Jonathan, the media was invited as a stakeholder in the meeting. And that points to the important role that the media, they think or they believe, would play in the whole entire process. But what do you have to say about this new approach there by the government, the issue of getting outside hand to fix a problem? That, for example, in some quarters they say it's a purely internal matter. It's not even a crisis that should warrant an outside hand.
I think that if there are legitimate issues of national concern, there is no problem getting someone from another ECOWAS state to come and fix it. Like we had our crisis, ECOWAS came. But the problem with this particular one is, there was no problem. There was a deliberate attempt, a deliberate campaign from State House and from Cabinet to kill the draft, and they did. And this is no secret. We've had president's closest aides from State House make open statements that this draft bill is dead on arrival. We're throwing it out. And they went on action and they did it. And they did it very well. Because they killed it right even before taking it to the third reading. Meaning they didn't even want to touch it. And some even did Gaddafi with it. They throw the draft and they disrespected the people who made the draft. They called it bogus. They insulted some very highly intelligent, educated people who worked on the draft. So this was the clear contempt by the cabinet and the president and his allies against the constitution was known from the beginning. Right. Now, and you've seen this even in the cabinet position paper that was sent to the CRC. So we knew even before the draft was ready that for the cabinet, they're not interested. So with the coming of Goodluck and with regards to media's involvement, there was no dialogue. Because when you are going to have a dialogue with someone, that someone comes with a clean, open hand. You say, these are the issues we need to talk about. And then what are your issues? Then two sides of the divide, so-called divide, come together and they all have all their issues on the table. In this particular case, that is not happening. As far as I know, and I don't know of any other journalist who has the so-called option paper, which is what should set out the issues that ought to be discussed and agreed upon.
Myself, I was...
Opposition leaders I spoke to, they don't have the option paper. The option paper is stuck between Justice Ministry and IDEA. Right? That's no dialogue. You've come to a table with a clenched fist and no one knows what is inside it. But then you teased out 6 points, and among them the most important one is the term of the president.
Term of the president.
So this is a way to amend the draft. They are coming to amend the draft, but this is their own failed way of legitimizing that amendment. They are coming to rewrite the draft, and this is their own way of legitimizing that amendment, so that they would say, well, we had consulted the media, we consulted the civil society, we consulted religious people, we consulted all categories of people, and this is what they agreed on this. And that's what they've done. That Goodluck would come, and even in January when Goodluck comes, nothing will change. Because as far as they are concerned, they are not making concession on the fact that the president should serve 10 years.
They are not giving in.
And the other side will also not give in on that fact. Because that's the only, let's not make it too big, that's the only issue. All these orders are like throwing so much spaghetti onto the wall and hope that it will stick. The orders are known issues. The retirement of judges. If you retire a judge and you tell the judge you are not going to court again, you're certainly going to give him some form of a package. Whether we agree on how high or low it should be, but there will be a retirement package. Of course. Right? Now, with regards to the sacking of the president, how do you call it? The impeachment of the president. It's going to be 2/3 of the National Assembly. Then you take it to a panel that, a court sort of, a panel that's going to be established by president's appointee, which is the Chief Justice, then looks at the merit of the case, and the president will be legally represented. Then if the president is even found guilty there, then come back to National. You call that an easy process. That's easy to do. That's not an easy thing to do. So there are a lot of things that are raised that are not necessarily intended for anything. They're just trying to muddy the waters so that we don't have a clear thought. But everybody sees this, and it's like a game of an amateur. It's so clear on the wall that everybody knows. The only issue is the issue of the term, and the reason for the so-called restarting of this constitutional building process is just to legitimize the rewriting of the draft. That's
but
all.
if that is what they want to do, because there is a lot of incredible amount of mistrust between their side and the side of the opposition vis-a-vis those that voted for the draft. So if that mistrust or suspicion should come out, I mean, I think the mere fact of this draft, even as they are trying to amend it, to go back to the National Assembly and then succeed would still become an issue.
Yeah, but at least they can convince themselves that we've done something about it. And that's the whole point.
But this is not about convincing themselves.
It's
this
like
is
some
about
guilty guy who knows he's guilty, but is trying to convince himself that he is doing something about the problem he has created. This draft has been killed by the cabinet. The international community knows that. ECOWAS knows that. The European Union knows that. America knows that. Everybody knows that. This is their own way of saying, no, we didn't. And now we're trying to do something about it. In fact, we're trying to fix it. But they're doing it in a very amateur way, because everybody is seeing that
the total collapse and failure of this. You want to say something? Go ahead.
So he mentioned the issues and options document. So International IDEA, which is the international NGO said to be facilitating this process, I guess with Ministry of Justice, they developed what they call issues and options document. As he said about the media not seeing that document, I don't know about the political parties, but I know civil society until now, even we have requested for it from the Ministry of Justice and from the International IDEA, have not provided this document. And so if this is a document you've prepared to come and have a conversation, yet you don't share it with people you consider to be stakeholders, then what is your interest? So for me, if this government is really committed to what they are doing, they genuinely believe that they are in this with all the sincerity and honesty, what stops you from even sharing this publicly for public debate? Because the issues and options there are, what are the issues, the contentious issues? So, for example, he mentioned term limit. It's an issue. Should the term limit start in 2017 or 2021? All right. So, the options are therefore, what are the various options? Should we maintain as it is in the final draft? Because the final draft considers the term of the president incumbent as part of the first term. So should we leave it there? Or another option, I'm sure would say, then let the term start in 2021. All right? Maybe another option would be, let's remove term limit altogether. I understand. Or another option could say, let us send this to the general public to decide. Because you can have a referendum on one question. When should the term of the president start? 2021 or 2017? Yes. So that issues and options document would therefore identify the so-called contentious issues. He talked about the judges' salary, for example, the impeachment, and it will provide options. What are the options we can choose to be in the Constitution? Is it harmful for the generality of Gambians to see that document, to contribute to that debate? Ultimately, it is political parties who have members, they have representatives in parliament, they are going to make a decision. If that issues and options document is out in the public, why can National Assembly members, for example, political parties, take that to their constituents? Let's discuss, as my constituent, what is your position on this? So you create, therefore, an inclusive participatory process, and that is where the legitimacy of that process derives. But that is not shared.
And now, what do you have to say about the issue of this thing failing already? I mean, now if you are saying that there is not much sincerity in it, and like I asked Mustafa, if that should get to the other side, clearly they will not be interested. So if it gets to the National Assembly, there is every likelihood that it is going to fail again, and this would also be a waste of time of everybody.
Well, they've started a process, so I'm sure the political parties have their positions, those not in parliament and those in parliament. It's up to them also. I'm sure they are studying the environment, whether they will change approach and all of that. But for me, I think Gambian citizens now must take ownership and leadership and responsibility. Yes, I think for far too long, I've said this many times, in the Gambia, we do not make our politicians face consequences for their decisions and actions. And in my little observation around the world, particularly democracies around the world, until politicians are made to face risk for their decisions and actions, they don't do the right. And so I had said, when the final draft was dropped at the National Assembly, 100,000 Gambians will go and occupy Banjul. That is what I would have expected spontaneously for citizens to do, to show the political leadership, the political parties, the government, that we disapprove of this. And for me, it is still not late for Gambians in any way, whether they are going to court or they are going on the streets, but any way for Gambians to, make their presence felt, for Gambians to put the necessary pressure on the president and all political actors that they must do the right thing. And for me, the right thing is for the president to bring back, through his Attorney General, that final draft constitution. Bring it back through a fresh process to the National Assembly, and we make the necessary pressure to make sure the National Assembly, they approve it. And Lamin, if you could recall, during that period, I was one person who was advocating that National Assembly members should not touch the draft. Yes, I know the Constitution, it's a bill that goes to them, they can touch it. But it doesn't mean so you have to. I felt National Assembly members
you have to look at whether it is necessary.
Yeah, because for me, given the process, how all this thing came about, the consultation, the CRC going around every Gambian at home and abroad, even meeting certain institutions like the National Assembly on its own, political parties on its own, to finally draft a constitution. If it goes to the National Assembly, for me, the moral thing, the ethical thing, the legal thing, the responsible thing for National Assembly members to do is to endorse that final draft so that the Speaker takes it to the IEC to conduct a referendum. No National Assembly member should feel important, regardless of what powers the Constitution gives you, should feel so important that you feel you have to change the draft. Because that draft Constitution, Lamin, if they give it to you, if they give it to me, or Mustafa, even Justice Cherno Jalo, if you give it to him again today, he would have cause to change one thing or add one thing. That is it. But for me, that final draft was in such a state that it is something to start with as a nation. We approve it. But the moment you send it to the National Assembly and the National Assembly fails to exercise restraint, but feel they need to touch it, immediately there will be partisan capture. Because one party would seek to twist it for their selfish interests. And I was concerned about that partisan capture of the final draft. That's why I had advocated that let us all say that the National Assembly don't touch our draft. Yes, because this is not a matter of right or wrong, touching that draft, because it's a matter sometimes, because this is the way we live, because it's about how we live. So for me, if you bring it there, I may change things that I wouldn't be right or wrong. If you change anything there, it is not being right or wrong. It's about what you want, what you feel, what you think is in your best interest. So if somebody would put something there, they would remove term limit. Somebody would say, no, we'll put term limit there. Who is right and wrong? If you are a citizen, you said, no, I don't want term limit. We cannot say you are wrong.
It is your right.
It is your right, it's your belief.
Say so.
If I say, no, we should put there a term, 1 term, or 2 terms, or 3 terms, 1 term should even be 10 years. I mean, I'm not wrong.
It's your right.
Yeah. So therefore, if you put the Constitution, that final draft, to the National Assembly, after it has gone through all this process, and we say, National Assembly members, now touch it, edit it. Certainly. Somebody would say, no, time limit should not be there. Somebody say, no, time limit should be there. It should start at this time. And we go back to square one, and that's where we are. So for me, it was really not necessary. It was a huge mistake that we, on the part of National Assembly members themselves, not having seen that aspect. That, look, let us not touch this. This is a referendum, a draft constitution. The process, we were all part of it. It is finally draft, submitted to the president, gazetted, now it's been brought here. Let's continue the process to its final conclusion, which is let's approve as it is, we send it to Gambians. It is now Gambians, including we, the members of the National Assembly, who are all going to vote in this referendum. And if Gambians majority vote yes, fine. If they voted no, we go back to the drawing table.
Now, Mustafa, what
It's
clearly,
been killed
yes,
by the minority.
the minority there, but I interviewed the top justice there, Justice Chemna Jallow, and what he told me is when it comes to the president's current term being included, it was the Gambian people who told him that, and that is exactly what they did. But again, I spoke with Barrow's people, and what they told me is that we told this man clearly that we don't want that there. This is what we want, and he went ahead, and he went ahead and put that there. Interesting. But what do you make of the role of DAI? Clearly, they have since steered clear of any dialogue. I mean, we've seen their leader, and what they are saying or arguing is that there is no impasse in this country. There is no crisis. This is just a stalemate or standoff, if you like, between Parliament and the executive. There is no need for you to invite some international delegation, according to Halifa Sallah. And as a result, they are not coming anywhere near this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it may be necessary to come out and listen to them and hear what they have to say. But in the end, also, I mean, Sallah was right. There was no argument. It's the majority, a minority that made up its mind that it does not like the draft, a draft that's been made by an independent body and submitted to all of us. None of these parties took part in the drafting of this draft constitution. It came from an independent body to them. And the majority of the parties said we agree. Majority of people in the National Assembly said we agree. A minority killed it. And then you want to fix that problem, you go to that minority and fix it with them. It has nothing to do with the rest. The rest agreed. The problem is those who don't agree. And why didn't they agree? Because they think that someone should rule the Gambia for 15 years, but that someone is the person who is going to bring the law that confines every other person who comes after him to 10 years. What kind of a man would that be? You say, well, everybody who comes after me should rule this country for 10 years, but I'm not part of the mere mortals. I should rule you for 15 years.
Don't make sense to you.
That does not make sense. Not to me, it's not to anybody. You know, and then you have a country of close to 2 million people with a lot of people with rights to rule that country. I mean, and fresh ideas. Every 10 years you want to have someone with fresh set of ideas to come into the scene and try to change some things. Because what that does is that every other person who comes after the other seeks to improve upon certain key issues. I mean, under Jambe, I mean, as much as we're dissatisfied with Barrow, under Jambe, a lot of things were not possible, including programs like this, which seeks to hold the leadership to account. So there has been considerable improvement. And someone who also comes may probably say, let's fix the tour around the country and make it even more productive. So certain things may change. And this is the reason why 2 term in office is very important.
It's very important.
But if you have someone who says, no, I'm going for 15 years, we will get stuck with this constitution, and who knows, probably if it comes next year, the person may say, well, if it comes after the election now, I have to go for 20 years. You see, this is a problem.
Madi, UDP went to Congress over the weekend, and they have pummeled Dabo back as leader, and already Mr. Dabo is licking his lips. To the extent at an event or their rally, he said he was talking about his inauguration in 2022. What do you have to say about their Congress?
Well, you know, a lot of the time I don't speak to parties
and their activities. But you have definitely have an opinion.
I've followed the Congress. I think so far I've seen Citizen Alliance and UDP hold their Congress. My issue with the Congress, you know, because I wasn't on the ground, but I felt, you know, there was in a lot of conversation on policy, you know, issues, as I've seen in the case of the Citizen Alliance, you know, in terms of addressing, you know, various development governance issues, whether it's employment or youth or women and so on. Yeah, so, but I guess like Citizen Alliance and UDP, I guess I hope all the parties are going to hold their congresses. But the fact that, you know, parties hold their congress, I think it's good. What I'm more concerned about, you know, with the political parties is internal democracy. And so I would want to see political parties speak to that, which means political parties would have to have instruments, just say their constitutions, and structures that really reflect, you know, all those elements of democracy, of good governance. I've also followed the financial report. I mean, I've asked myself whether there was a report shared with the Congress delegates, because what I saw the treasurer present, for me, it's at the surface level, and so and financial transparency is very important. That political parties need to be transparent, you know, with their finances, and so I don't know inside the hall whether they have distributed those forms, audited accounts, so that, I mean, delegates at least and citizens in general will get to know the sources, the funds that political parties obtain, and which means, of course, IEC would have to also look at that, because the Elections Act also clearly specifies in some areas where funds can come from or not come from, you know. But also, as I was saying, in terms of internal democracy, our parties need to have in their instruments issues of term limits, of quotas, gender quota, quotas for youth in the leadership of the parties, to ensure popular participation, and, you know, and decision-making structures are inclusive. So, which would require that you have constitutions which are, you know, which reflect those things. You know, so one can see in the case of UDP, again, Dabo is elected party leader, and you know, there's one or two also have been there for a while. You know, I know, Citizen Alliance is coming now, but other parties also have party leaders over a long period. And that clearly tells you there are no term limits yet in our political parties. And that needs to be addressed. And the arguments I hear across our political parties, you know, about leaders or elders have made sacrifices, or the state of the country was this or that. And so, I mean, those are not excuses. And so our parties need to set those standards, you know, moving forward. Yeah, and I hope that happens, because right now it's even very difficult to see party constitutions. You know, if you know, try to follow from now on, because we've tried to follow to get party constitutions, but it's always a difficult thing. And a party constitution should be such a transparent, easily available, accessible document that any party would have it in their website. You know, any party would have it, the documents in their headquarters, so that if you go there, you just pick it up like that. You just click on the website and see the party constitution. But, you know, I have worked with political parties, and one of the challenges is really to obtain a party constitution. So some would even tell you, we will give you the constitution, or, you know, we are reviewing it, you know, so that you don't even get to see where is this finalized constitution. So our parties have a problem, and the constitution is the base document, is the foundational document. I mean, it's the basis for your governance and democracy. So if that is difficult to access, I mean, publicly, that also doesn't tell well on internal governance democracy inside our political parties. But that is a problem. I mean, some parties would make it available, very few, but most of the parties, it's either you won't get it, or, you know, you are referred to that person, or that committee has to approve, or, you know, allow permission to have it, or the constitution is being reviewed. I mean, for how long are you going to review the constitution, so that you are not going to make it available? So I challenge you as a journalist now, from today, collect all the constitutions of the parties,
we are heading
and let us know
an election year, and we'll most certainly do that, because we want to do a rigorous vetting of all the political parties in the lead up to December's election. But also what we have seen, Dabo was returned unanimously. There was no challenger. One might expect that this time around, there would be someone who would stand against UDP Liba Dabo. And Dabo's return to the helm comes, but you have some people outside really who say he is too old, he should step aside.
Okay, so these are the party issues that basically are not for me. You know, why nobody came to challenge him, personally, I'm not surprised. You would see that in many other parties. I mean, parties have held congresses and same persons have come as party leader and secretary general. Yeah, you know, which all the more for me speaks to the issue I'm talking about in terms of strengthening internal democracy within our parties. Because I believe if a political party is not democratic in opposition, and that party takes state power, there's no guarantee that it will deliver democracy. Because democracy is a culture, it's a way of life. So you got to be used to it. And we cannot just make the argument that nobody has come to challenge me. It is open for anybody to do. That is one thing. But the other thing is our instruments have to reflect those democratic standards and structures. And in our context, term limits are very important. You know, one can argue you don't have time limits in, you know, a particular country, in France or in UK, fine. But given our socio-political culture, it is important that we have time limits inside our political parties and at the national level, you know, in order to strengthen that culture of democracy and good governance. So, you know, I won't be surprised any party, you know, that comes along and then the leader is not being challenged. Because, you know, there's a whole background to that. But that is all the more reason, or you have an executive that doesn't have a certain number of women. You know, I've noticed though, I mean, for example, I think the last Congress, UDP announced that they have allocated 30% of their executive members to women. And that seems to be, you can see in the list of the executive members this time around, probably 30% are women or more. You can see that in Citizen Alliance. But you see, again, this is not a matter for the party leader to say or the party spokesperson to say this. It is important we also reflect this in our constitution, you know, so that it is there as a substantive law requirement that the party would work towards, because that is the way you also address the issue of women's underrepresentation. Because if it is in the constitution, it means a party conscious of that would have to work hard to make sure I recruit capable women, you know, just as we go and say, you know, capable men are there. We go after also women that we can put in our executive. And we wouldn't sit here and say, well, nobody stopped the women from coming. Yes, something is stopping the women from coming. But even if that is not the case, we need to be conscious of the fact that we cannot have a society, a political party in which leadership is dominated by men all the time, you know. And so for me, not just 30%, I would go for a 50-50 executive, you know, membership of men and women. Why not?
What do you have to say about Dabo's age? Some people say he's too old.
Well,
the age is fighting against.
Yeah, again, I mean, just yesterday I was having a conversation with a friend in all the way in Kenya on that issue, and I said, well, let us not get into simple arguments about that. It's great. I see Citizen Alliance put up a young flag bearer like Dr. Cisse. I see a young person like Dr. Omar, Honorable Omar Cisse of GDC in the National Assembly. And so I don't think it's a struggle between the young and the old. We just have to have a system because, I hate mentioning Trump's name, but you know, he is 70-something years. I mean, they have just elected Biden even older. Yeah, I understand. And you can find it across the. So for me, I'm not really bothered by age, but I want to see a political party, every political party, put in certain requirements, standards, to ensure inclusion for women, for youth, for persons with disabilities. Put in values such as time limits. Put in values that uphold on, manifest transparency and accountability. Yes, because you always have older people, younger people, but the process should be such that there is space for everyone. Yes, and so I won't fight over Dabo's age. Rather I'd fight over the party having a time limit. Having quotas for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. I'd fight over transparency, financial transparency, accountability. I'd fight over the party being proactive. Yeah, but to purposely target someone, okay, because he's old, so he cannot be a party leader, or he's young, he should be the party leader. I think that's a simplistic.
That's a simplistic. If you are watching, the president has a message for the Christian community over Christmas. We will bring you that address. The president will address the nation at 8 p.m. tonight, prime time. But Mustafa, now I will come to you. What are some of the things that you picked up regarding UDP and their Congress?
Well, actually, I was not following.
You weren't following. Where are you?
Party congresses, except the meeting that happened near my house.
Okay, the buffer zone rally.
Yes, I can only give you general comments about general issues.
Okay,
I wasn't following their
general comments. I'm sure you know it's Dabo who has been returned, elected as the leader of the party. And really, the party is in buoyant mood. The party is confident that 2021 is theirs to take.
Well, I mean, that's up to the electorates to decide. I mean, if they want to vote for UDP, so be it. If they don't want to vote for UDP, that's it. I think that the issue with our political parties, and I can make general comments about this, specific to UDP and also to other parties, is that in this country there is a problem. There is this personality syndrome, and there is this fear also. For example, I'll give you an example. When I made a split-second decision to resign from my position as Vice President of the Gambia Press Union, I've got some people text me to say, look, who is going to replace you? As if somehow the union does not have anybody as smart as me. Or so somehow yes. I put a certain kind of intelligence that doesn't exist somewhere. Yes. That kind of Clearly. Fear, and that kind of, like, this is in this country. Like, we don't create anything. We just have people, persons doing and holding up things. When they die, those things crumble. Or persons, you see even our political parties that are in power, APRC for example. When Jammeh left, you are seeing, up till today, they are struggling to even become a political party without Jammeh. They
still talk about supreme leader.
Yes, supreme leader.
Yes.
So you have a certain kind of a situation in most political parties. And even UDP, if you ask them, they will tell you, well, you know, if you leave Dabo right now and it goes, the party will be divided. We can't have another leader. But what better time to change a party leader and have a former party leader oversee that change than probably a time when that party leader is capable, right? That's the best time.
Yes, go on.
Yeah, you need the best time you need to change a party leader perhaps is a time when he is capable and can oversee that change.
Do you want to win millions of dollars this December? All you have to do is dial star 777 hash for free or call or SMS 1010 at $3 is only to participate in the new AfriHali show and be part of the 7 daily winners.
Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays live on GRTS, Afri Radio, and social media platforms. Be part of our lucky winners.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Welcome back. Our apologies for that, interruption there. Mustafa, you were talking about political parties and the fact that the party is built around an individual, issue of personality.
Yeah. They do that a lot, and that's not a political party problem. It's a Gambian problem. You have everybody think that somehow everything has to there has to be a hero. Societies are not built by heroes. They're built by people from the grassroots up. So you don't need a hero who once die and everybody becomes desperate. You need to build a society, people of values, hardworking people come together, have a common agenda, common vision, common values, and build a particular thing. That's what makes a society progressive. Now, for example, certain political parties in this country, and almost all the political parties in this country, you go to PDYs, you look at Khalifa and Sidia, how long have they been party leaders, changing each other? You go to UDP, Dabo has been since 1997. You go to Hamad Bas, that almost came the same time as Dabo. You go to NPP is insisting Barrow must be here for 15 years. They can't even change him. Now, because NPP is Barrow's, this is political party. Political parties are formed by, because there is a problem with the center. The center is not holding. If you have a party that tells you, if we remove Dabo, for example, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be division. And certainly, you don't have everybody married to a certain value system. You just have everybody married to certain individual. And that individual is the person you all struggling to keep there. You see what happened to Jawara. When Jawara left, you have the various camps, no need to mention so many names, but you have the various camps disintegrating. The PPP you saw in 2018 is the PPP that was here before. It was the PPP that existed after Jawara. It started disintegrating. You have 3 people all leading a faction. Because people are not united around value systems. People in all situations ought to have a hero. And that hero is the one who holds the center. And that's the problem. Now, that is why this country is in a very sad state, because change one political party and replace it with another. If you don't change the governance infrastructure, you can't move forward. And you've seen when we even change a government and bring a another political party, which is the coalition, certain things have changed. Yes, you don't have hitmen who can be sanctioned by the president to go kill someone. But the very essence of our government, the essential infrastructure of our government was kept intact. Because the value system of those who were in government and those who were in opposition, as far as governance is concerned, is not much different. I'm not talking about sending a jungler to kill someone, which is the extreme. But in terms of our understanding of how the governance system should be like, how the institutions should independently function, how the Auditor General is supposed to be allowed to do his job his way. How, you see, in fact, when the regime change happened, institutions thought, there were some good people in institutions who thought that good things can happen. We can make things happen, and we're going to do it.
when the National Environment Agency had suspicion that Golden Lead violated environmental laws, they didn't consult anybody. They took them to court right away. And then you had some minister at State House, some minister, we were told some minister, and no need to mention name, interfered and said, we are going to address this out of court. You see, people, even when institutions want to function as normally as they should, someone interferes.
Someone blocks it.
Because there is always a hero, there is always that very significant, very important person who has to manage everything. And that's problematic.
That's a problem. Now, UDP and their Congress, how, in your opinion, how is it going to affect their chances next year? Because clearly the confidence level in that camp is soaring, is a rooftop.
It may not affect their chances.
Affect in a positive way, I mean. Do you think, how do you see them winning?
Well, as far as UDP is concerned, with regards to their popularity, they're still very popular opposition party. There's no doubt about that. You just need to see their turnout. But that does not also certainly mean that they can win or they're going to win. Election is very difficult to predict. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't know who is going to win. Of course, don't also underestimate the power of the incumbency. And don't forget that when Barrow is also gaining popularity, when he started, before he even formed a political party. And now, the way he is, it's different. And having an entire machinery of government at your disposal does mean a lot.
And there's been this mass exodus, if you like, of people from one political party to the NPP.
Yeah, and then for anybody there are independents who don't see either of the two political divides as an option. Those independents may stay away from voting. But there are people who also don't think UDP is a viable option, they go to Barrow. But there are people who think Barrow is not a viable option, they go to UDP. So it's going to be an interesting time if they go to election. But that's not my point. My point is not whether NPP wins or UDP wins. I think that this country is supposed to not transcend partisanship or partisan politics, because that's a reality that exists as part of our life. We're always going to hold different views. But whether or not it is UDP that's in power, NPP or APRC or CA or any other political party, there is one fundamental thing we should all agree on. That is the effective and efficient functioning of state institutions. And at any time, we should have someone in power who ensures that happens. And how do we do that? We make sure the changes starts at the level of the political parties. Because that's where it begins. Political parties are the government. The government is the political parties. The way it functions, the kind of, if all you do at political parties is behave in a certain way, all you do is favoritism. When you come into power, you begin to do the same thing. So such that, look at the kind of government we have. You come into power, you even hire people who are not efficient, but you put them in positions because they are your boys. These are things
and you feel protected.
Yeah, these are things. Yes, these are things we see often. We've seen it under Jambe and we're seeing it under Barrow. So you hire people because that's favoritism. That's the kind of politics we encourage. But politics, the kind of politics we should encourage, whether it's Barrow in power or Dabo in power or Ismail Assise in power or anybody, is to encourage effective and efficient functioning of our state institutions so that we move forward. Without that, we will not move forward.
Mustafa, thank you very much. As always, appreciated your time for coming. Thank you very much.
I'm glad to
Thank you. Mustafa Kedabo, journalist. Ali Madi Jabata was also with us there. Now we have a couple of stories before we bring you that special coverage of the President's address to the nation. Well, it is a Christmas message to the Christian community that will air beginning 8 p.m. But then the Gambia boasts of many tribes, but who among you really know about the Manswanka? Well, Manswanka is a minority tribe that can be found in the Gambia. But the tribe is facing threats of extinction in terms of their language and their culture. And now there are efforts to avoid that from happening. More in this report. The Gambia has many tribes, but not many know about the tribe Manswanka. Yes, there exists a tribe in the Gambia called Manswanka. Originally from Guinea-Bissau, the Manswankas migrated to the Gambia in the early 1900s from Gabu in Guinea-Bissau. They settled in many places in the Gambia such as Janjambure, Jasong, Basse. A lot of Manswankas, however, could not keep up with their language, with many speaking other languages found in the Gambia instead. As a result, this tribe has been staring at extinction in the country, both in terms of their language and culture. Many younger Manswankas in the Gambia do not understand their language and culture, but a new initiative is underway to save Manswanka, with members of the tribe holding a meeting over the weekend to discuss ways of standing by their language and culture.
Suwa ma yamade tene fonka ma lunta ma anton ne mol mo jototo na manka suwe ni fie lunta mo anton ne ndedi de kise ne mbendo bodo tundro kise anton oto no nyoji fembe ne ni rami turuk sigma mantino ngo wa me ka doro no doni ne yeti ne yare lati bene non dan ne yeyon duno mang samen nele min tike do mato mo mbar wonne nyanta teme ka je nyang ma faksiti nan dunama wondanen e winde di de me fende kandane tibembe pondandro samfion mo baay mo sima mo la kabirane ne ran sima ndon no mo birane ne ran sima e lan chudan nam ne de yala de ya fanda wikin yang kota wikin ya wa kota ten yalan bo mo me demi singwa to ko si wa nyana kom rubodo tu wa nyangwa funto ni remak dimba ni remak de yalla do ngo funa andunama hani ni rong witi de savu no nyojun rofa ni ron tangtan andunama ro ni ron bino banda fa andunama rofa wa nyafo ni ron o me tangtan nen kene babari bina la pat pelela baring e ba futuro mason ko le manka mason ko tabare kalimo minga la jang e be nya fete 15 wala lafta wala iso bandila do mandin naje na be o jang ngadindu wala kumande pour ngana neyenyo kanganya because bembala bina la Gambia jang manson ko cultural troupe e data kela nyaminna ke kumande na wala ngana kul areng ti sato le print kanne e fanol be sankanne pripesoro be kering janning iba fola bemba bina sila wo mitino kango walati na nyinul be na kumandiro ke Suleiman Kamara is the Imam of Sansangoto in Manswang in Guinea-Bissau. He was in the country and was invited to the event.
Anno mfamarinun kula manena nyanta maranchen nang barungwaran gemar a través de situation manfen ngun fan kama mansam sam samara bengyang ne kama matino kadimban no digin na jabet kama mfedinodo nkulankulama yaman retini ngun na fenyang nembe wanya makotun de akan ku wanya wanya nen rojek ne akan na kudngi akurto madan ngun fonnung dogma dogatini ngun wi woro ngun fa kontema nang nan ron robodon ton rosam akan na fe wanya renkini ni nyangen ne kawang tan sueme tamba tu megun sonson nen Gambia to bi war ma nyonguni ni ne fere ma funtan fere ma kotten dege ni ro mela yek dege ro nyanta fe famari ni wa ma sonson ambanta ba sonson agambaga sonson wondam baga ngun fe darjer ma yan tambe yan nan ro fen ne wa mo fen ye metti banin e me rotun ne su do wa ma fen fo la fo ambanta ba ngun agambaga ngun fa kamama mfe mama teno mfedi mbano nkanna jamadan digi mfedi nodo fen mfedi nodo mit mfedi nodo sengan en quantum fe balurim e waya min dan la mfen kan possibility man la reng dogan la tiban.
The Manswanka women in the Gambia are led by Tenen Duganda.
Yo suwe man fong mama to no. Fong mama to suwe mo bodon tu. Mama to ma fo kula mama mona nyang magbi yonin risim dranen. Wonan rese chagam ko ka dogo ng nasam. Nyang fena dewi adela chene. Nyang magbi suwe me kulanin. For fina. Wonan refa noima. Eksi gondanta no ne sa agdene ne wolene ne suwe ya maka funtenin. Efene ne suwe ndo doma. Isamne ne sa gbongon ran. Wonan fong mama to wabete kama. Fong mama to wabete kama suwe sana man fong mama to wabete kama. Sama suwe ngon foma. Nyangin resim drangele. Mfiyaran dete fen nan rukulenge. Ya we fene ne suwe do na dene ne ndomo. Molene mun suwe yama. Ne nyango wam go wam yene do ram mantini ngile. Mo nyande ge mingo yenge mfe kai. Ner manu molene muksima mo nyang muksima. Mo kwato ngonon koma unti ngonon koma. Ne reta ma reta manu mo yenge do ranga jange yanga mo yenge. Amfima. Mo mo la mantini ngila masama sa bongongi. Ngonan rokwatan suwe yama.
And Bakari Bamba had this to say.
Suwe ngofama woni di fusia sene. Suwe ngofama woni di fusia sene. Ba suwe sanama, suwe sana purka kusufak dogma. Ngono fa fam fa nyoma ko yang bete kamale. Andung nimo demula nuni fon na mo fara yo ko bomma. Ngono mbeke suwe ma nyang mayo dina siko ma dina ne barim ban do mato male wi am banan siko ma woni la ila fonctionnel. Ndon la fes metti siko ma. Mbara nin don da bun nan bimbana na we don la sala bun nan fara bun nan. And suema ni di suem famarima ndo wi ndo famarin ne de kan ninga fa haji man de mi fering haji male ngonen la fondata hani yamma wi mo ne fonna fontama numu ke sajor ne te nyang tat fon suwa yamala nyang andu suwa ma do mo nyanta nyang ma sima suwa ko ton koy suwa ko ton nafiki yaay suema dog male kotto de toma.
Nyara Kamara is a Manswanka singer and sang about her being a Manswanka.
Getimile, suya man na getimile, suya makambun tenji, suya man na getimile, nganingi suwe, ngasasu suwe, ngamamu suwe, suya man na getimile, suya man na getimile, suya man na getimile, suya makambun tenji, suya man na getimile, nganingi suwe, ngasasu suwe.
Manswankas have over the years made their presence known in the Gambia. One notable activity they engage in is the annual cleaning exercise they do at Radio Gambia. While the exact number of their population is not known, their Muslim society alone has a membership of 115 people. US-based Sajo Bamba is a prominent Manswanka who is behind initiatives aimed at reviving Manswanka culture and language. A big cultural event is being planned in a bid to bring all Manswankas in the country together. Now, businessman Abubakari Jawara has given $100,000 to the women of Sanyang. He presented the cash to the women at a ceremony held in Sanyang on Tuesday. Fado Kamara reports.
Businessman Abubakari Jawara on Tuesday traveled back to Sanyang to deliver on a 100,000 pledge to the women of the village. The businessman had earlier this month pledged to give 100,000 to the women as part of his corporate social responsibility to Sanyang.
The Gambia tinyala because mbota janel ko kuninga soto laftale.
I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there because the president's address or Christmas message would air in just under 5 minutes. So that will be that for News Review. Thank you for being there. We'll be back next week. Until then, I am Lavin Jai.